These whiskered contestants have been sharpening their claws and their reading skills to help get to the next round of the competition. I hope you enjoy their stories and be sure to vote for your favorite to move on.
If I could do anything for a whole day, it would have to do something that involves water. I could swim in the ocean or pool all day long and never want to get out. That should surprise you because unlike other members of the cat family, tigers are excellent swimmers and love to cool down with a good swim. If I could only eat one meal the rest of my life, it would have to be something with meat since I'm a carnivore. So I would have to say pepperoni pizza. If I were stranded on a desert island, I would bring the whole Harry Potter series. That way I would never get bored because I could read those over and over and over again. Hey everyone, Tiger's back. Who would have thunk it? This week I have another James Marshall book. It's the George and Martha series, One Fine Day. Can't wait to share it with you.
Hey everyone, it's Tiger here to read you George and Martha One Fine Day by James Marshall. 5 stories about 2 best friends. Story number 1, The Tightrope. One morning when George looked out his window, he could scarcely believe his eyes. Martha was walking a tightrope. My stars, cried George. I could never do that. Why not, said Martha. It's tons of fun. But it's so high up, said George. Yes, said Martha, and it's such a long way down, said George. That's very true, said Martha. It would be quite a fall, said George. I see what you mean, said Martha. Suddenly, Martha felt uncomfortable. For some reason, she had lost all her confidence. She began to wobble. George realized his mistake. Now he had to do some fast talking. Of course, he said, anyone can see you love walking the tightrope. Oh, yes, said Martha. Certainly, said George. And if you love what you do, you'll be very good at it too. Martha's confidence was restored. Watch this, she said. Martha did some fancy footwork on the tightrope. Story number 2, The Diary. Whenever Martha sat down to write in her diary, George was always nearby. Yes, George, said Martha. I was just on my way to the kitchen, said George. Said Martha. Martha decided to finish writing outdoors. How peculiar, she said to herself. I could still smell George's cologne. Then Martha heard leaves rustling above her. Aha, she cried. You were spying on me. I wanted to see what you were writing in your diary, said George. Then you should have asked my permission, said Martha. May I peek in your diary? Asked George politely. No, said Martha. Story number 3, The Icky Story. At lunch, George started to tell an icky story. Martha strongly objected. Please, I have some consideration, she said. But George told his icky story nevertheless. You're asking for it, said Martha. When Martha finished her lunch, she told an icky story. It was so icky that George felt all queasy inside. He couldn't even eat his dessert. You're the champ, said George. Don't make me do it again, said Martha. I won't, said George. Story number 4, The Big Scare. Boo, cried George. Have mercy, screamed Martha. Martha and her stamp collection went flying. I'm sorry, said George. I was feeling wicked. Well, said Martha, now it's my turn. Go ahead, said George. Not right away, said Martha slyly. Suddenly, George found it very difficult to concentrate on what he was doing. Any minute now, Martha's going to scare the pants off me, he said to himself. Maybe she's hiding someplace, he said. George made sure that Martha wasn't hiding under the sink. During the day, George got more and more nervous. Any minute now, he said. But Martha was relaxing in her hammock. I'm sorry I forgot to scare you, said Martha. That's all right, said George. It wouldn't have worked anyways. I'm not easily frightened. I know, said Martha. The last story, the amusement park. That evening, George and Martha went to the amusement park. They rode the Ferris wheel. They rode the roller coaster. They rode the bump cars. They were having a wonderful time. But in the tunnel of love, Martha sat very quiet. It was very, very dark in there. Suddenly, Martha cried, "Boo! Have mercy!" screamed George. "I didn't forget after all," said Martha. "So I see," said George. The end.
If I could do anything for one whole day, I think I would spend my day on my favorite Caribbean island, St. Martin, soaking in the sunshine. If I could only have one meal for the rest of my life, I would have to choose Thanksgiving dinner. If I was stranded on a desert island and could only bring one thing, I think I would bring an endless supply of drinking water. That way I could stay healthy and hydrated. I'm going to read you a story called The Wonderful Things You Will Be, written by Emily Winfield Martin. I love this story because it talks about growing up and how the possibilities are endless. There's only one you, and you can become as many wonderful things as you want. When I look at you and you look at me, I wonder what wonderful things you will be. When you were too small to tell me hello, I knew you were someone I wanted to know. All of your tininess couldn't disguise a heart so enormous and wild and wise. This is the first time there's ever been you, so I wonder what wonderful things you will do. Will you stand up for good by saving the day? Or play a song only you know how to play? Will you tell a story that only you know? Will you learn what it means to help things grow? Will you learn how to fly to find the best view? Or take care of things much smaller than you? I know you'll be kind and clever and bold. And the bigger your heart, the more it will hold. When nights are black and when days are gray, you'll be brave and be bright so no shadows can stay. Then you will discover all there is to see and become anybody that you'd like to be. And then I'll look at you and you'll look at me and I'll love you, whoever you've grown up to be.